Bills fan, we can talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we shall, and Big Ten football this weekend, and all sorts of things going on in the big city. But the Orioles are in a free fall right now. Luke Jones joins us now from Oriole Park at Camden Yards to discuss all things free fall and the Birds and the Red Sox. And wow, right? This has been one of the uglier weeks of Oriole baseball. Ending with the 1-0 incredible game that Gosman pitched last Wednesday night. This has been a pretty tanky kind of 7 days all the way around, from the fan base to the empty stadium to kicking the ball around to white man's game. There's just been a lot of things going on this week here, Luke Jones.
It's incredible to think where they were literally a week ago, coming off of their best road trip of the year. You mentioned the Gosman masterpiece. They're one game out of first place, coming home for a huge 11-game homestand, a place where they've played so well, regardless of attendance or any of those issues that we've talked about at length and will continue to talk about into the offseason, quite frankly. But they played really, really well at Camden Yards really all year long. Even their worst homestands have still been 500 or so. And they follow up that road trip with their worst homestand of the year. And they're now 6 games out. I mean, it's just incredible to think how quickly this thing has gone sideways for them. It started with a 4-game split against Tampa Bay. I mean, we talked about how that was underwhelming, playing a last-place team and not being able to take 3 out of 4. Meanwhile, we saw what the Red Sox did at Fenway against the Yankees, and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, it's sitting right there still, but you got to take 3 out of 4. Well, lo and behold, 3 straight losses to Boston, and now you're trying to avoid a 4-game sweep. The division's done. It's just done. 6 out with 10 to play. That would be historic.
Yeah, you're just hanging on trying to play next Tuesday. Literally. And by the way, I put the complete whammy on him. You know what I did, right? I booked a flight.
Oh, there you go.
To Toronto. So it's over. I mean, we're playing in Detroit. Something's going to happen, but we're not playing in Toronto.
Well, you're going to be going to the wild card game and seeing someone else play Toronto.
Because I bet on it, right. If I want to see the Tigers play or the Astros, who, by the way, I've started to really look at their schedules, right? Like, that's where we are at this point now, right?
Sure.
The reality is, we can talk about the pitching and the hitting, and we will. The reality is, can you win tonight? Can you sweep Arizona? Can you somehow at least get 1 or 2 in Toronto next week and then go to Yankee Stadium next weekend and play for your life? Because that's the way this is looking, because I'm seeing the Twins and the Braves and the Dregs show up on these other schedules, and I say, the East path is a tougher path, not just for the Orioles, but for the Blue Jays too, I think.
It is. The ones, you do take some solace in the fact that these other teams are not great teams either. If these other teams were capable of...
They don't have Koufax going tonight.
they would be in the wild card, or they would be leading their division. So, this is kind of a battle of attrition almost, not from a standpoint of health, but just, who can rise to the occasion a little bit here. I mean, that's what's been so disheartening about this homestand. I mean, the Orioles had so many times this year, even in the second half when they've struggled, they've seemed to do what it takes, when they need to win a game, when they need to take a series, when they need to bounce back from losing 4 in a row. They've done that. And, they've hovered around 500 now, a few games below 500 in the second half, but they haven't gone through that stretch where they've just, completely fallen off the cliff.
Until now.
We talked about it last year, that stretch in late August where they lost 12 of 13, and it ended any hopes they really had of doing anything from a postseason standpoint. They haven't had that period. But, to come home and to start a homestand with a 2-5 record, it's just, it's heartbreaking for anyone following this. And, it's one thing if you're going to struggle swinging the bats. We've seen that for most of the second half. But when you start playing Little League defense, look, Chris Davis is a really good defensive first baseman. He's proven that this year, and he's proven that over the last couple of years. That's the guy who has really improved from that side of that phase of the game compared to where he was, say, 5 years ago. But that play at first base where he had plenty of time to get Leon and for whatever reason decides to throw a BB toward Brad Brock instead of just a firm underhand toss, I don't know what that was. I'm trying to process that the morning after. You're still trying to.
I'm trying to process the whole thing. Like, just the fact that, for me, it was 10 years to the day that I did the walkout. That was a pretty big deal in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I put a lot of effort into that. It created a message that I'm still sort of half famous for, 10 years later. And to see the stadium empty, you know what I thought about when I saw Chris Davis make that play? I thought about Glenn Davis. You know what I mean? Yeah. Who was the GOAT, and before GOAT meant greatest of all time. I mean, that's kind of the stupidest acronym, the GOAT.
Yeah.
I just think that's stupid because there is a GOAT in sports. It's what Chris Davis did on Wednesday night. That makes you a GOAT. But Chris Davis and Glenn Davis. Glenn Davis was the biggest GOAT of my era, right? Right on up there with Juan Bell or Manny Alexander or Alan Wiggins or any of the Eddie Murray, anybody else that ever got chased out of this city, either quite frankly, for the color of their skin, or for their play, or for Jake in it, or for their drug habits, or for whatever that was. The Orioles can't even catch a cold for any of that kind of controversy anymore because no one cares enough for them to be all that controversial. This guy got $160 million last year in a place like Boston or New York or Chicago. If that's the Cubs' playoff hopes and you throw it into the dugout and you're a $160 million player, people go nuts. Here, there's nobody at the ballpark and there's nobody to even put goat horns on him. And Glenn Davis's career fell apart, quite frankly, because his body fell apart. With Chris Davis, this has been... he wasn't there for the team when they needed him, when they won the division, because he put something into his body he shouldn't have. The old man gives him all the money, and now he's had kind of a turd season, quite frankly. I mean, it's been okay. But now in the biggest game of the year, in a real sports town where people, go nuts, this would be a moment of outrage, and here it's... okay, well, we'll play on for the wild card because that's just where it is at this point. But clearly it's the biggest mistake of his career at this point if they don't make the playoffs. But, he could go hit 5 home runs in the next 3 games and, help them lead to a sweep of Arizona and be a hero on Monday because he's capable of that.
Well, I think you're making a little too much of it because his biggest mistake was getting popped for Adderall.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
He hasn't had a season as bad as 2 years ago. And, they won kind of in spite of his dramatic struggles before he got suspended. But, it's clearly a big mistake. But this wasn't the last game of the season either. As dark and as dire as it's been here over the last week, they have 10 games to turn this thing around, and they're still leading for the second wild card right now. I mean,
as Tom Davis and Rick Dempsey were quick to point out after the game.
But it's true.
It is true. They better start winning some games, though.
I mean, a lot of people. How many people? And there are a lot of fans, and this is the one thing where I will call fans out who say they don't want to come because they don't. This team's not compelling to watch. That's baloney to me. Have they been frustrating from time to time? Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they were designed to be a beer league softball. They were designed to play 4-hour games that they win 8-5. I mean, literally, that was what we thought to be. I am shocked at how many 1-0 and 2-1 and 3-2 games that they've played in this year. Their pitching's been way better than I thought it was going to be, quite frankly.
Well, in the second half, it's been better. We talked about the fact that if you looked at what their starter ERA has been since the All-Star break, it's right in line with what I was telling you the entire off season into the All-Star break. Just be mediocre. It didn't need to be that much better. You'd love for it to be better than that, but I was being realistic about it. But this team they need to just get out of their own head. I mean, when you're making a defensive play like Chris Davis did in the 6th inning on Wednesday night, that's telling me that it's in your head. And I'm not saying specifically the Red Sox per se, but just understanding what's happened over the last week is in your head. Go out there and win a game. Boston's not that invincible. I mean, if they were, they would have won this division by 20 games. They haven't. They're playing really, really well right now. They're the best team in this division. I'm not saying that they're not, but you get to a point where everything starts to pile up and you're pressing. Clearly they've been pressing at the plate. Clay Buchholz, another Red Sox starter, shuts them down. Did very, very little against him. The one opportunity they got with the bases loaded and nobody out, they only managed 1 run. That was in the 3rd inning. And, it's just
And they've had a lot of poor at-bats, bro. I mean,
sure.
This isn't accidental, and they're giving it their all, and they're playing a poor brand of baseball right now. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, you're kicking the ball around, pitchers giving up inopportune home runs, and then the offense kind of dying. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, they're not scoring runs. If you're putting up twos and ones, as Palmer pointed out on Wednesday night in the postgame.
Yeah.
You're not going to win a lot of ball games, no matter who your pitchers are. Quite frankly.
I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, we talked about it with Porcello pitched really well on Monday. I'm fine with that. The guy's won 21 games, but when you see what they've done now in the next two nights against Eduardo Rodriguez and Clay Buchholz, I mean, come on. Rodriguez, they expanded the zone a ton. Buchholz, I will give him credit. He did a nice job with throwing so much off-speed stuff because we know that's what's effective against the Orioles. He kind of really pitched to the scouting report, so to speak. But, you got to do more than that against Clay Buchholz. I mean, this is a guy who was banished to their bullpen for a large portion of this season. He's been better of late, but certainly, you allow him to shut you down over 7 innings. I don't know what to tell you. About the only thing you can say is, you gotta flush these games. You can't worry about that. You have to go out and try to win tonight, and you got to go out and take care of business against Arizona and going into the final road trip of the year. I mean, it's as terrible as they've been over the last week. None of these games, they're the ones who allow it to carry over to the next day or the next weekend or the next series or the next week. None of these games, just because they lost 3 out of 4 to Boston or, the first 3 to Boston, and they can still win the final one. And that has no bearing then on how they play against Arizona, but you got to get yourself in the right frame of mind. And, Buck Showalter said it after Wednesday night's game, talked about how he has a long memory when it comes to this club, knows the good things they've done. And, you kind of have to draw from that a little bit, because when you're in a stretch like the Orioles are in right now, you wonder if you're ever going to win another game. And that's not to say that I think that they're headed for a stretch where they don't win another game, but you just have to change up the mindset.
When's the last time we've seen a pie in the face? I'm just asking you just frankly. When's the last time that happened?
Opening day. Remember they outlawed it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
there was something about that I think helped them sell tickets. And I'm not being an ass. I'm being honest. Like, there's something about that fun translated to the fans to make them come.
Sure.
And I don't see a lot of fun going on. You know what I mean? Like, anywhere. In the stands. It really reminds me of the kind of place that Peter Angelos would run. And it's been a little morose the last couple of days. Not just the way they've lost, the crowds they've lost in front of. The stakes feel like they're not there. And quite frankly, the stakes were really high on Monday, right? A couple of wins, you're a game out. Now you're playing for first place around now. And I opined last week, and I reread my blog the other night because someone had made a point about it. And I said, they could be 5 games out by the time my wife and I go to the game on Thursday, which we're going to the game on Thursday, not because of the pitching matchup, just because it was the night to fit into our week. I mean, we had a charity event on Monday, we had a charity event on Tuesday, we recuperated on Wednesday, and Thursday is our night I hope it doesn't rain, and now there's a real reason to not go to the game, right, which is, well, they can't win the division. There's one more stupid thing to pile on about why people aren't into it. But I'm really examining this, Luke. You know what I mean? I'm writing about it. People are talking about it. It's 10-year anniversary of Free the Birds. People are saying, what did we really accomplish? My wife has asked me, you put 5 months into that. 10 years later, how do you assess that? And when I assessed that, I created no change at all, really. Changed my life, get my press pass taken away. But 10 years later, this is the exact problem that really concerned me, which was the team might get good one day and no one will care. Because I've seen that happen. We've seen it in Oakland. There are a lot of places where even when the Braves have been good for so long, people fell asleep and stopped going to the games, quite frankly. And then 20 years later, they got to build a new stadium for them. So I'm worried about where are we 10 years from now? That's the question I ask when this is where it is. And part of it for me is the fun that translated from that 14 team. And I think I saw that in Kansas City, and I think you saw it too. There's something about the fan team thing that is really lost here this week. It's really glaring. It's really obvious. And the team's playing like crap on top of that. I think it all deserves some sort of an examination. But I'm with you. They got to go out and hit the baseball. I mean, if you look at the last week, bro, I mean, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. Those are the runs. And they've won games this month 2-1 and 1-0.
Yeah.
And 3-1, which is incredible. This is really about guys getting paid to hitting against good pitching, because that's what they're going to see when they see Happ next week and Sanchez. They're going to see good pitching, and if they get to 2 weeks from Tuesday, if they survive 12 more days, I don't know who the Blue Jays are going to have on the hill that day, but it's going to be good pitching.
Sure. And, no one's saying they have to go out there and score 9 or 10 runs. I mean, they've gotten, even these games that they've lost to Boston, look, I'm not saying giving up 5 runs is great. I mean, it's certainly not, but, score 4 or 5 and you're in it. It's a game. When it was just incredible, with the meltdown that occurred in the 6th inning, they went from winning 1-0 to down 5-1 in 2 pitches. It can't get any worse than that. I mean, normally you hear that scenario, you think someone hits a grand slam and then the following hitter hits a solo shot. You can't give up more than 5 runs in a 2-pitch span. I mean, think about it. So it's just remarkable to see how quickly that turned. But at the same time, you scored 1 run.
You score 1 run, but that's the problem. They can only score them 1 at a time when everyone's trying to hit the ball 400 feet. I mean,
right. And we've talked about this. I mean, they hit home runs in the first half of the season, but they did other things. They worked counts better. They hit
3-run home runs.
Yeah, they had guys on base
much
more. So I mean, it's just it's maddening. It's very frustrating. I get that. How much does the attendance tie into how they play? I don't know. I mean, this team played really well at home all year, and they haven't drawn well on weeknights all season long. That's why I said to you, I'm not surprised about this, because the club didn't do anything from a marketing standpoint, ticket deals, concession deals, giveaways during the week, anything to try to boost September attendance. They just said, well, the team's good, come out and watch it. And, it is what it is at this point. I just saw something, it was earlier this week, the Nationals were advertising 33% off on select tickets for the rest of the regular season. That's a first-place club running away with their division, and they're doing ticket deals in September. So why can't the Orioles? So as much as there's been so much fan shaming going on, not necessarily directly from the Orioles, but fans talking about it on Twitter, other media talking about it. My question continues to be, what did the organization, not the team itself, but the organization, the business and ticket and marketing side, what did they do to try to fill the ballpark for this month? At least fill it a little bit more. At least have 30,000 as opposed to 18 or 19. And they haven't done anything. So, as far as that emotional lift that maybe the Orioles could have gotten in these games, wasn't there. But, it is what it is at this point. Again, that's going to be a significant discussion point because, I hear what you're saying as far as the long-term ramifications and everything. 14 straight years of losing and bad decisions made by the organization, but that still doesn't really make sense from the context of why did attendance just fall this year when there had been a rise in attendance over the last 4 years relative to where they were in 2007 through 2011. So, what specifically happened this year? And I'll go back to tickets going up, season ticket invoices being sent out so late, and deals like Tuesday bargain nights going by the wayside. I mean, they made things more expensive and took away some of the more affordable options in the process, and they haven't recovered from that, and they haven't done anything to attempt to recover from that, quite frankly. So, you kind of reap what you sow in that regard, and it's been unfortunate, and Adam Jones talked about it before Wednesday's game. Once again, to me, speaking the truth, it's sad that ballpark is not filled for these games, regardless of who's to blame. That's unfortunate because, it should be a really fun atmosphere regardless of what transpired in terms of results the last few nights.
He is Luke Jones, Luke at WNST.net. Baltimore, Luke out on Twitter as well. We're going to be on the backfields in Owings Mills all week. The Orioles now, let's talk about on the field the next couple of days instead of the theory or instead of the fans, which I get it. There won't be a whole lot of people at the ballpark this week, and they're giving away like hoodies or something.
They'll be out there this weekend because they're giving away stuff.
Giving away stuff, right. That's a good point. That's
yeah.
The F, I'm writing a blog as we speak here. F is in free, right? Free stuff, free swag. People are into that. Either way, I'm in Jacksonville. You'll be at the ballpark this weekend. Winning these games now, I text you late into the night on Wednesday, sitting around. By the way, if Mr. Angelos was looking for broadcasters that bleed a little orange and black, as he once told me, he certainly has that because the post-game's like a funeral, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sell tickets either, by the way, or engender support. But, on a day-by-day basis right now, it feels like they're never going to win again, and that's the way slumps feel. That's the way it feels when you haven't had a hit in a couple of days. That's the way it feels if you're out in the clubs and, you haven't gotten a girl's phone number in a month or two. You start to feel like it's never going to happen. We're never going to win. Look, the Arizona Diamondbacks are coming to town this weekend, and, David Price aside, this has got to be a get-well weekend, one way or the other, right? I mean, you don't want to fall too far into the abyss before you even get to Toronto or New York because we all know how the road has been. They're not going to go 6-3 on every road trip.
No, right. I mean, anything short of 2 out of 3, and you'd really like to get a sweep, quite frankly, because
well, look at who's pitching. I guess that would be the vibe here, and I know Buck talked about, something happening here. What's going on with the pitching?
Yeah, I mean, he was cryptic in his remarks before Wednesday's game. Basically alluded to the fact that they might be having someone with a health issue. He didn't specifically say health, but he alluded to it. Clearly, I mean, you look at the probables for the weekend: Gallardo on Friday, Miley on Saturday, and TBD on Sunday. Well, I don't think too many people would not notice the fact that that's Dylan Bundy's spot in the rotation. So, are they potentially shutting him down? Is there a physical issue there? He just eclipsed the 100-inning mark, and as much as we've all discussed the innings limits and how the Orioles haven't really talked about it, a lot of teams over the years, when they've shut down a pitcher, they haven't always broadcasted it. The Strasburg situation a few years back for the Nationals was well publicized, but there have been plenty of young pitchers where a team just says, "Yeah, we're shutting him down. He's done enough." We've talked about the fact that Bundy hasn't pitched very well over his last 5 or 6 starts, so that could factor in as well. You pray.
Well, that's when the medical people to step in and say, man, Peter has all these high-priced medical people, right? We know that much about Peter. He's very, very involved in young men's arms. He is. I mean, over money and that's a piece of property to Peter, and he treats it as such. And if the doctors are saying rest, then, that's... that's not a bad recipe, but it's not a recipe for winning, but neither's the way he's been pitching lately, right?
I was just going to say, and I wrote about this a couple days ago at WNST.net. The fact that he hasn't pitched well, a lot of people are saying, well, he's tired, they've overdone it with him, is he hurt? And, just speculative, completely speculative. But, at the same time, this is a 23-year-old pitcher, first year in the majors, limited minor league experience. I mean, he hasn't pitched a whole lot over the last 3 years. So how much of it could be some fatigue, and how much of it is just he hasn't pitched well and he struggled, and he's gone through the ebbs and flows of being a young pitcher in the major leagues. I mean, lots of great pitchers struggle their first couple years and go through stretches where they're not great. So it's tough to say, but again, Buck Showalter cryptic as far as talking about that Sunday start. Talking about the fact that he'd like to get some extra rest for pitchers. Keep in mind, Kevin Gausman is in kind of uncharted territory as far as his innings. Not that he's out of the ordinary as far as a natural progression, but he's a young pitcher as well. So as much as you want to push it from a competitive standpoint, you also have to have a look at the big picture. Because look, I think we all are resigned to the fact, even before what happened over the last week, no one was going to say the Orioles are the favorites to win the World Series if they get in. Certainly they want to get in. But at the same time, you don't want to completely, throw caution to the wind and jeopardize young pitchers' futures if you think there's a little bit of a concern there. So we'll see how it plays out. Maybe Bundy starts on Sunday. Maybe he starts on Monday. And we're just speculating here too much. But the way Buck talked about this before Wednesday's game, you did get a sense that they were at least dealing with some decisions to make in terms of either health or some fatigue. And the most common name that's going to come up in that spot is Dylan Bundy, and rightfully so.
He is Luke Jones, Luke at WNST.net, and Baltimore Luke out on Twitter. You can find me anywhere the internet is served, and the Buy a Toyota audio of all 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. Download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. It's all brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. Reminder, next Wednesday night, we're going to be at Greenmount Station in Hampstead. We've got Alex Lewis, our new starting left guard, rookie left guard, who speaks German, so it's going to be kind of fun. Chat with him about Germany, as well as Ryan Jensen, one of our also interior lineman who's banging around and getting into ball games and is a good dude. We're going to look forward to meeting those guys and talking to them as we swab for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero at Greenmount Station. Come for the crab cakes, stay for the laughs, talk some football with the big guys. I will have a good time. That's Wednesday night. It's all brought to you by Fremont Mortgage and our dear friends at Continental Title. Next up, morning newspaper, 7 a.m. It arrives in your email inbox free of charge each and every morning. It is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. I got to get back in the gym. I'm getting lumpy right now. PlanetOfTriumphs.com for some inspiration out there as well. And each and every Thursday, Dennis Kolatzis comes on here and talks inspiration and, in the case of the Orioles, desperation and perspiration on the case of the Ravens as they get it going. Every Thursday, 3 to 5, Dennis Kolatzis sponsors our Sunday Sports Voice, now heard on Thursdays from 3 to 5, as well as our WNST Tech Service, which brings you the breaking news first all weekend long. Scratches, injuries, trades, anything that's going on. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and you can sign up at WNST.net. I'm Nasty at WNST.net. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as on YouTube on our WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.